to a Social and Media Matters talk. Today we are joined by Baybars Örsek, Vice President of Fact-Checking at Logically. He is spearheading the expansion of their fact-checking initiatives globally. Welcome, Baybars, and thank you for your time today. So
Absolutely, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I just want to give you a brief background about this talk today. We recently launched a report on misinformation and fake news, which we did with the first-time voters. And we wanted to understand what is the impact of misinformation upon them, and also how it helps them to shape their political views. So based on that, the report that we launched, that was very insightful. The insights were very interesting for us to even know what is that the youth in India is understanding. So around that, I wanted to have a chat with you and ask you about your experience in this industry, the work that you have been doing, the wonderful work, incredible work that you have been doing, guiding people, a lot of work that has happened globally and your contribution to it. And with this, I also want to begin by asking and understanding that the global landscape of misinformation is huge. And in that segment, I would request you to share your thoughts and insights on the current global landscape of misinformation and its most significant impact on societies and governments at large.
Sure, I'm happy to do that, and thanks a lot for having me again. I think this particular question has been answered by all experts and different practitioners in the field from the same perspective, which is, I guess, it's the impact on the society, right? How mis and disinformation has an impact over the society has been at the center of our focus for, I guess, as long as I can remember, has been the focus. And lately, I think it's very evident that with the dominance of social media, particularly, certain platforms around video, text, and audio, we see a multi-model innovation of misinformation over our information consumption. One of the recent studies that I came up to states that 75% of Gen Z internet users get their news exclusively from social media. That leaves a huge significance on how mis and disinformation spreads compared to the last decade when I started doing my, started doing fact checking in my home country, which it was basically the political actors circulating certain falsehoods or narratives, and the fact checkers were just trying to fact check them and provide the public with accurate information. But growingly, what we've been seeing is fact checkers spending much more time on online misinformation, tackling narratives around public health, public safety, now in the year of elections in 2024, election integrity, and just try to play this, tag game where we are just trying to catch misinformation. It is becoming much more harder to do that speed and scale with the proliferation of misinformation, and the impacts on the society are yet to be understood to the full extent, because unfortunately we are still not able to get meaningful data from the platforms, and large online platforms in the European scale are under the DSA regulations. In different parts of the world, there are different regulations, but it's still very hard for us, the practitioners, to understand what is the problem. As much as we understand the importance of it, we are still nowhere near to understand the significance of the impact that is generating on the society.
Certainly, and that's really interesting to know about what is happening globally. And with this, I also want to ask you that, what are the challenges and innovations? So in your role at Logically, what are some of the unique challenges you face in fact checking? And could you highlight any innovative approaches that you are employing to tackle these challenges currently?
Absolutely. Actually, one of the reasons I left the International Fact-Checking Network slightly less than a year ago was to explore how can I use my experience and expertise to find meaningful solutions to fight the misinformation at speed and scale. And as a technology company, Logically, and its independent fact-checking subsidiary, Logic the Facts, we've been working to deploy AI-powered and human-in-the-loop solutions to tackle misinformation at larger scale. Because right now what we see is, especially with the current models that the platforms are working with fact checkers, is very much limiting our capabilities to identify the scale of the problem, because it's actually just a one-way street where the platforms are providing their feeds and their dashboards for us fact checkers to fact check the claims that they have shared with us. But it is just a tiny drop in the ocean when it comes to the spread of misinformation. What we have identified is that the origins of misinformation is essential for platforms to identify and tackle. What I mean by that is when you talk to the trust and safety teams of the platforms, they are very confident in their abilities to identify on-platform misinformation. They seem to know what is happening on their own platforms, but for some legal and practical reasons, they are not able to identify what is happening on other platforms, especially with the emergence of such fringe platforms, mid-market platforms, especially during election cycles in India, in the US, in Europe, and in different parts of the world. You see certain narratives are emerging from less monitored and observed platforms, and they circulate and basically get amplified on major platforms at a lightning speed. So as a tech company, logically, our solutions have been to offer our fact-checking services as an independent and a professional body in our under our entity, but also to offer scalable solutions around our technology. We have two products that we have been working on and onboarding our internal teams and currently external teams as well, both in India and in Europe among IFCN verified signatories. One of them is what we currently call the model automated fact checking. As our work in progress title, the tool allows us to identify multi-model content across platforms, not just on the major ones that we get our videos from, but from others, and provide the users, the fact checkers and the trust and safety teams of the platforms, but a fact check word and score to help them to prioritize those videos and those audios and different multi-model content to flag at speed and scale. The other one is the intervention that we are trying to do with the other one is to identify the gap between the discovery of a misinformation at the artifact level and how the platforms intervene on those either proactively or reactively through their community guidelines, and what is the harm associated with the delta between the discovery and intervention. So hopefully those certain capabilities and technologies will help the fact checkers to remind the platforms that actually the scale of the problem is much more than what you provide us with to tackle it. So since 2016, fact-checking organizations have been working with platforms in an official capacity, in a professional capacity. The most prominent one, as we all know, is the third-party fact-checking program that Meta has introduced back in 2016, right after the US elections that year. And right now the program has reached to more than 80 partners in 100+ different languages and countries, but it's becoming much more evident that it is just a part of the larger problem. It's just a small part of the solution of such a larger problem. Other platforms are also deploying certain programs to tackle this problem, but it's still very slow and small compared to the problem. And what we are trying to do, just to wrap it up, is to provide tools and technologies that can be publicly audited, not just provided to the practitioners and users, but to the broader industry as well, to understand what are the shortcomings of the platforms and how we can help them as their trusted advisors and partners to find meaningful solutions to this problem, which has just been recognized as the largest threat of this year by more than hundreds of experts lately at the World Economic Forum, identifying disinformation as the biggest threat of this year.
Certainly, and very interesting to know about the tool that identifies multimedia across platforms. I think so. Is this only in certain parts, or do you even plan to expand it?
Absolutely. So we are now onboarding, and speaking particularly about India, we are onboarding users, IFCN verified fact-checking organizations to test the tool, try to find ways in which to embed into their workflows, and multiply the number of fact checks that they can publish in any given time. We've also submitted certain um, white papers, or we have started working on white papers to demonstrate the impact on how the tool helps fact checkers to do fact checks at a higher speed and scale. The ways in which some platforms and search engines like Google or YouTube uses fact check is predominantly depending on fact checkers publishing their own work and making it available on Clear Review, on Media Review, and other databases. So platforms like them can just use them as authoritative information to surface on their products, either on search, news, or on YouTube as a separate platform. So our problem analysis that there are no enough fact checks. Basically, I mean, compared to the scale of the problem, there are no fact checks enough for the community and the industry to benefit from. So we need to create this ecosystem of practitioners that uses technology to use in their favor, not just to replicate our professional fact checkers that have been certified and approved by our strict methodologies, but use technology as a tool to create more benefit. Right now, it's available in English and Hindi in India, and we are also building the additional languages, most certainly Telugu, Canada, and SMEs in the next couple of months, in next couple of weeks ahead of the elections, and other ideally all the 22 additional official languages in India during the election cycle as well.
So basically, yeah, the expansion is very much required in your, and also because in India, with the population and with the users, we also face this problem. So to go on to my next question to ask you, because you have shared widely of your work and your experience. So what are the most effective strategies or tools, like the one you have created, um, and the one you are rolling out? So, sorry. So what are the tools in combating misinformation and how they can be implemented across different cultures and political contexts?
Sure, localization is unfortunately understood very inaccurately by the stakeholders in the fight against misinformation. During my time, both at IFCN and now at Logically and Logic the Facts, what I have came up with is this notion that many times, unfortunately, platforms see localization efforts as just a way to tick certain boxes, right? I mean, either to respond to their shareholders or the industry at large, or meet certain requirements, with the existing and forthcoming regulation in their key markets. But it takes much more than just to translate or localize certain interventions. When it comes to tackling this information, it's very tailor-made. It should be very tailor-made and contextualize, not localize, but contextualize to communicate the work to the people who need it the most. My longtime mentor, friend, and one of the founders, if not the founder, but at least one of the founders of the modern fact-checking, Blair, in his last piece for the Nemo Lab, rightfully states that fact checkers, we need a reboot. Fact checking needs a reboot. And as someone who has been in this field for longer than a decade, I couldn't agree with him more, because I think we are now in a place where we are under the wrong impression that the work that we do with the platforms sort of suffice the need to help people with our work who needs the most, right? And particularly in a time where we see platforms are providing their users with the option to opt out from fact checking labels on the platform. it becomes more evident that we need to make sure our work reaches to the people that needs it the most. You talked about your study on the first-time voters, and I had a chance to go through it, and I found really interesting takeaways. One of which I guess is very like universal. It is the lack of trust against towards the news, right? Like the first-time voters, especially, are, as much as I admire the upcoming generation with their digital skills, as a father of two with one at the 8 years old, I'm constantly surprised how they're fluent and easy with the use of technology. But when it comes to voter manipulation, I think we need to do much more investments in providing the Gen Z and the first-time users with more information on the election integrity, on like and how to consume the news. And that requires a multi-level approach, whether it is country by country or region by region. There needs to be much more local, contextualized, not just localized or translated, but localized and contextualized approaches and helping them out. And it also takes platform by platform how you disseminate that information as well. So right now, what we are doing is, rather than just relying on people to find us and come to our website and consume our fact checks or find our fact checks through our partnership with the platforms, we are actively engaging with nationwide and regional entities such as the ABP, East Mojo in India, partnering with certain organizations in the past with PDI, help them to become an IFCN verified signature by coaching them since they launched their fact-checking unit, and help them to get to where they are today in their fact-checking capabilities. We try to empower media outlets with a larger reach than we do, to make sure that our fact checks reach out to hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, especially in this election cycle. Last but not least, we also invest both resource-wise and time-wise a lot on media literacy. We carry out a number of programs right now. One most recently with for Teach for India, to empower the middle schoolers and high schoolers, and even elementary schools, if I'm not mistaken, with some digital literacy skills, because we believe in, it's going to sound counterintuitive, but fact checkers aim should be to make themselves irrelevant. If we can train and educate more people with digital literacy, meta literacy skills, eventually they will become their own fact checkers. So I was always making this joke at conferences. Our end goal is to make ourselves irrelevant, because everyone should be like a fact checker by themselves and be more confident in their new consumption. So hopefully we'll get there and we'll find new areas in supporting the community at large, hopefully through our expertise and know-how.
No, totally. We also believe in same. So our workshops and our trainings that we keep doing with high schoolers and also with college going students, we focus on digital literacy and media literacy, especially because we also want them to be self-equipped of the, at least of the elementary elementary knowledge of it, so that they know that any information that they are consuming, they can at least verify it with the basic tools that are available. So our workshops focus largely upon that as well, and happy to take forward your tools in India as you are partnering with other organizations and institutions. It will also be useful for us to learn about it and how we can roll it out in other educational institutions. So, AI is coming in. We all are getting equipped to it. We are learning it, the mechanisms of it. So I also want to look into the role of AI and ask you about how it is helpful in fact checking. So how does AI is basically enhancing the fact checking process, and what future developments do you foresee in AI roles against misinformation?
Mhm. So I am going to be a bit challenging the overall and long-standing perceptions on the role of AI in fact checking. For many years, nearly almost for a decade, we all talked about automated fact checking. that was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about automated fact checking, how machines could do fact check, and that predates like the launch of ChatGPT, other large language models. I mean, I'm talking about like 2016, 2017, 2018. Everybody was talking about automated fact checking before generative AI was like a household name, in today's world. And for a very long time, the understanding from the automated fact checking was to surface previously published fact checks and match them with claims that we can detect either using certain models to extract claims from a long text, or using certain speech to text capabilities and still applying the same filtering. But the premise was matching previously published fact checks with claims that we can identify. So the technology part was mostly on identifying the claims. The technology's role in fact checking had been for a very long time. It was about identification of the claims, extraction of claims. But recently, especially with the proliferation of large language models, generative AI, everybody now has BART or other ChatGPT or other publicly available tools at their disposal. And now, unfortunately, what I see is a lot of startups or I mean, people with certain interests are trying to push for automated fact checking with the existing fact checking workflow as well. As someone who is at a tech company leading a fact checking within a tech company, it will sound a bit counterintuitive, but I strongly believe that fact checking has always been and will remain as a journalistic effort that will need to be done by trained, professional, and accountable human beings to provide that context that I don't think at any point the machines or algorithms will be able to do at the same quality, maybe at the same quantity, but definitely not at the same quality, because when it comes to identifying nuances and the context, we will always require a human contextualization to provide such definitive answers, because the thing that makes fact checking different from the rest of the journalistic practices is the definitive outcomes that we provide as fact checkers. We put our credibility and accountability and identity and brand, like in whatever we call it, we put our names on the work that we do, and we do wrap them up with a definitive outcome. We say these things is false, this thing is misleading, this is out of context. So we just have to make sure that our credibility is at stake there. But the technology, the AI particularly, is very useful in our current workflows, and it helps us tremendously to reduce the time for identifying a claim to fact check, and that will be the future for fact checkers. Because we publish and match the previously published fact checks to save from time and effort to get that out of get that before the audience, eyes of the audience. So the technology will be developing for sure, and there's going to be always debates around the bias, the transparency of the algorithms that certain all the large language models are deployed out there, and we will use the technology in our favor. Not we will be losing our credibility and the role that we play as fact checkers because of the rise of the technology. So it is actually a time where we are writing the future of fact checking and journalism, and the ways in which we can do this right, I think it's gonna just shape the future of the news consumption and news production, and we are very excited to be at the intersection of those conversations where the democracy, internet, and the work that we do is just combining a lot of opportunities to tackle this problem of the century. So we'll get there, but again, just have to reiterate that when we talk about automated fact checking, what we mean by it is how we can make fact checking much more streamlined and faster for our professional and trained human fact checkers. It's not the other way around. It is technology for our favor.
No, wonderful. And also, we will like to learn more from you as well, as we are venturing into this field. We are training students, we are training professionals, we are doing workshops and trainings, long-term trainings with professional and fact checkers to utilize the tools that are available currently and how that can be integrated into their own systems. So that will be a good opportunity for us to also learn from you directly about it. Um, so my final question to ask you for the day is, as we close our conversation, only for this talk, but yeah, and continue with our work. So what recommendations do you have for global collaborations in the fight against fake news? And are there any specific policy measures you believe are essential for this endeavor?
So it's going to be a twofold answer, but I will just structure it in a way that it will be hopefully, useful as a roadmap for the industry at large. Because what I see right now is proliferation of regional entities and bodies to empower collaboration for fact checkers. I mean, I was at the International Fact Checking Network for about 4 years, and I had the chance to work with fact checking organizations around the world and give them our support in capacity building and advocacy, policy, and fundraising. And I'm super excited to see that those efforts are now replicated in regional settings. The European Fact Checker Standards Network in Europe is doing an amazing job in surfacing Europe-specific policies for the community in Europe. The Misinformation Combat Alliance in India is now spearheading the foundation of the fact-checking network in India. We see more than a decade-long effort in Africa led by the Africa Check in South Africa, and combining their efforts to put together a collaboration effort and the continent. Same applies to South America. The Latam Chico has an amazing network that brings together organizations from the region. And all those efforts somehow support the global efforts to bring fact checkers together. That shouldn't let us feel confident and a bit successful in our efforts, because they're still all about building a capacity. I strongly believe in collaboration in the region and the global sense, but what we now need more than ever is supporting organizations to join forces together to build meaningful solutions. And I mean smaller group tactical partnerships and collaborations that we are also spearheading in different regions right now to tackle high-risk events, whether it's the Israel-Hamas conflict or the war in Russia, in Ukraine, or scheduled high-risk events such as the elections in India, in Europe, in the UK, in the US later this year, and bring together organizations to provide meaningful and actionable solutions to the platforms and other industry stakeholders, not just to support each other, because right now the work that the fact checkers collaborate is pretty much around collaborating and letting them know what they do, and basically get this joint collaborative newsroom style collaboration. But we need to do this 2.0 collaboration among the fact-checking community for building meaningful tools to support the tackle fight against misinformation. There are great work that already has been done in this field in certain and limited scales, and we just want to make sure we can take those efforts forward and come up with not just one-time or region-specific solutions, but universal, applicable, but locally meaningful solutions around technology. So we dedicate 2024 to make those tools a significant and fundamental part of the fact-checking workflows of the community, and also the solutions that the platforms can use, not just because they like it, but because they need it. And we need to remind them that they need to drink their own Kool-Aid and come up to the terms that they need to do better, and there are ways in which they can support and work with fact-checking organizations to get that support. fact checking has been, and I'm just going to wrapping this up with this requiem for a collaboration within the community. We need to communicate our work much better. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, fact checkers have been under a lot of stress and pressure for all the legal challenges that they had in various parts of the world. But now it's our time to let people know what we actually do. We are in the good fight against misinformation, and we are the ones who can help people who care about this, whether it's the regulators, decision makers, the platforms, researchers, to understand what the problem is, because we are still navigating our way in darkness, especially lately with certain shortcomings of the platforms around transparency. We need to be the ones who will tell them this is what the problem is actually about, and this is how we can fix it.
No, this is wonderful. Certainly, collaboration with more organizations will really help in training more people and more professionals that will also be responsible for verification of information that people are consuming, that user people like us, we are consuming, and believing that these will become more authentic and verified information for us, because 2024, as we see, is a very crucial year for globally. In fact, India and US goes for elections, and two major countries are into elections, apart from other 50 countries that are going for elections this year. So we also see that this is going to be hard work for many fact checkers as well, because there will be a plethora of information that will be spreading across platforms. People will be using it, will be consuming it, will be sharing it, and how to fact check every information that will be there. So I'm sure crucial times ahead, but yes, but for better solutions as well, as we see, we'll also learn with this phase, and we'll have better solutions and better tools that you are shaping and curating. So thank you so much. Thank
Absolutely.
you for your time.